There's a story about a man who needed a job. So he came up to a logging crew and approached the foreman and asked if he could get a job felling a tree. And before I forget, I was wondering, Jimmy, could you, in the back there, turn off the lights? I want to do a little experiment. Because last week I noticed that as I was going through, and we're going to just see, kind of doing things a little bit different. Go ahead and see it, turn off the other one too, is I'm noticing that, and I think it might be where the projectors are. There just might not be enough light, but some of the things up on the screen wasn't able to see. So now this is no license for you to fall asleep. All right, so we got that. Okay, so this gentleman was invited to fell a tree, and he did a successful job, and the foreman gave him a job. He said, you can start on Monday. So Monday comes along, Tuesday comes along, Wednesday comes along, he's doing a great job. Thursday, the foreman comes up to him and says, you can pick up your paycheck on the way out. The man says, well, I don't understand. I thought you paid on Friday. And the foreman says, yes, we do, but we're going to have to let you go. It seems that you started in first place on Monday, but by Wednesday, you have fallen to last place. And the guy says, I don't understand. I come first before anyone else. I leave last. I work right through my breaks. And the foreman, getting a sense of the man's integrity, thinks for a minute and says, have you sharpened your axe? And the guy says, no, I've been too busy working to take the time. I think that's good advice for anyone about to start a journey. We got to take time to hone our skills, make sure that everything is ready to prepare for the long road ahead. You see, today we begin a new journey in something that we're just calling Route 66. It's a new summer sermon series. It's probably one of the most famous treks in the country. Pictures litter on social media of Route 66. Songs have been written about it. TV shows and movies show people traveling on the concrete and the asphalt of Route 66. When I was in high school, I read The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Has anyone ever read The Grapes of Wrath? You know, it's about the story of the Joad family that loses everything during the Great Depression. They load everything that they can onto this jalopy, and they get onto Route 66. What you find here is they're looking for anything, a job, a place to settle, a bite to eat. They just need peace and hope. Actually, Route 66 is considered one of the characters of the book because it is a representative of really a new start for what takes place during the Great Depression. Now, with any journey, you got to start somewhere. You can start your trek on Route 66 at just about any point and go east and west. Today, we start our journey on this new sermon series right here in the midst of Easter. Now, last week was Easter. It was our big event, but as you can tell by the color white, the white is on my elm here, the Easter lilies, we are still in the season of Easter. And that means we can have an opportunity for a new start, of starting over, of trying something new. Think of it this way. If your New Year's resolution wasn't successful back then, you get to try it again. I like to think of it as the great cliche, today is the first day of the rest of your life. When I was in seminary, I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time on the Winnebago Reservation up in northeast Nebraska. When I was there, we had the opportunity to learn about their culture and about their history. We also learned about tribal politics, even had the chance to sit in and participate in a Native American church service. Well, each night we had a devotion. It was led by one of the pastors that was appointed, a good friend of mine up in northeast Nebraska. And I still remember it. He talked about a bookmark. Now, some of you that don't know what these are, because if you're reading books on Kindle or your phone, these are something that you put in books of print. Back in the time when many people used these bookmarks, what you did is you marked your page in there. And he said, and then he handed each one of us a bookmark, and he said, I want you to use this experience, talking about our experience at the reservation, as a bookmark in our life. He hoped that we would always be reminded of this moment in our time. Reminded how we changed, and reminded how God worked in us in that event. You think about it, we all have bookmarks in our past. A time that really marked something about our life. It could be the time of the birth of a newborn baby. Or maybe the day that we met our significant other. Maybe it was a time that we started a new job. Or maybe it was the realization that your marriage was over. These days are turning points. They are bookmarks, if you will. And it can be both positive and negative in our life. Today, I consider this to be a bookmark. We're going to mark this day. We're going to remember this moment because we begin our journey on Route 66 right now. Would you go ahead and read to us from the book of Acts?
I'm reading from the New International Version, and it's Saul's conversion. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "Now get up and go to the city, and you will be told what you must do." The men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound, but did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. For 3 days he was blind and did not eat or drink anything. In Damascus, there was a disciple named Ananias. The Lord called to him in a vision, "Ananias?" "Yes, Lord," he answered. The Lord told him, "Go to the house of Judas on Straight Street and ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul, for he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight." "Lord," Ananias answered, "I have heard many reports about this man and all the harm he has done to your holy people in Jerusalem. And he has come here with authority from the chief priests to arrest all who call on your name." But the Lord said to Ananias, "Go, this man is my chosen instrument to proclaim my name to the Gentiles and their kings and to the people of Israel. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name." Then Ananias went to the house and entered it. Placing his hands on Saul, he said, "Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road as you were coming here, has sent me so that you may see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit." Immediately, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he could see again. He got up and was baptized. And after taking some food, he regained his strength. May God bless the reading of his word.
Paul's journey with Christ started right here. Now, as we talked about, we had one of the children use a flashlight. It starts out as a flash, and it is dramatic. God got to him right there. Now, if you don't know who Paul is, you're going to. Throughout this sermon series, we're going to be talking about Paul and this great man of God, his stories and his travels. And in this series, you're going to learn his purpose of why he takes this journey to follow Christ. There was a pastor who was meeting with the search committee. The pastor said to the search committee, "If you vote me in as your pastor, I will do everything in my power to bring this church into the 20th century." And with that, one of the search committee members interrupts him and says, "Pastor, don't you mean the 21st century?" And the pastor says, "Let's take it one century at a time." If you've ever been in churches like that, you know it's going to be a long journey as they make those changes. Or maybe you're on a journey right now that asks you to kind of slow down a little bit. sharpen your axe, if you will. Or sometimes you're on a journey where there's a life event that maybe takes you into a different direction. No matter what journey you are on, there's always one question to be asked. Why? Why are you on this path right now? I want to tell you about Thomas Hall. And I apologize, I don't have a better picture of him. It was Father's Day a few years back. I remember that very distinctly. I got this phone call on my cell phone. It was choppy. I had a really hard time understanding the call. But what I figured out was that Thomas was a pastor and he needed a place to stay. So I said, well, okay, come on in. We'll find a place for you to stay. Now, it was Father's Day, and my wish that I said to my family was I wanted to be outside working in the garden. The parsonage was right next to the church, and so when I was working out in the garden, I noticed this guy riding by on a recumbent bike. Has anybody ever seen a recumbent bike? It's one of those you actually lay down and you ride, and you really work your hamstrings. Well, I'd never seen a recumbent bike before, and so I noticed when he rode by, and then a few minutes later I got this call, a much clearer call on my cell phone, said that he arrived at the church. So I went next door, I let him into the church, I kind of showed him around, and then I said, once you get settled, why don't you come over to the parsonage, and we'd love to visit. So here I was out in the garden, and Thomas comes over, and he says that he loved the opportunity to work in the garden. And so here it was, two pastors working in the garden. I kind of wondered what anybody thought when they drove by. But we started visiting. And we found out that Thomas and I actually had a lot in common. We had both been to the same training event down in Arkansas. We just missed each other by a couple years. We're both excited about where our ministries are going, and we both love to get our hands dirty. Well, Thomas stayed for supper, and we visited for a long time, and then it was time for him to turn in. He was getting ready for his journey. He prayed for us, and then he told us to follow him on his blog. And in fact, his blog entries is the basis of this sermon series. So, this is his journey from Montana down to Texas, and this is his first blog entry. Okay, serious bike tour training didn't happen. However, a move from eastern Pennsylvania to western Montana did occur in the days leading up to this tour. So the plan is to ride slowly and shortly for a couple of days, then try out some long rides followed by a few short days, which will eventually lead to mostly long ride days. I'll begin in Missoula on Tuesday, June 1st, and we'll stop at Billings to attend a conference. And then I'll slide down to Brogius and old Route 212 before returning due south to Gillette, Wyoming. If all goes as planned, I'll end up in Del Rio on the U.S.-Mexican border by early July. Still, as I sit in a sleazy motel on the edge of town, I ask myself, am I really ready to do this? Can I do this? That's the question we all ask at one time or another. I don't know how that answer will find resolution in this tour, but I will do my best to stay on mission and on task as I celebrate 40 years of ministry while raising awareness and support for Hope Village. Now, I tell you, I love the line, I will do my best to stay on mission and on task. Because when you start a journey, that's all you have is hope. Hope that you're going to get to the end. Hope that you won't peter out. Hope that something will come out of it. Hope that you won't run out of money. We also have one more thing, and that is faith. Faith, I think, is the reason why. It's why Saul got up from his experience and traveled to Damascus. It's why Thomas rode all the way down to Texas. It's why we start any journey. It's what motivates us. We need a mission. We need a task to keep us moving, to start going in a new and different direction. Maybe something that's adventurous. And I would say that today we have two very different adventurous stories. One of Paul and one of Thomas. I want to share with you a story. It's one of my favorites. Some of you might have seen it. It's been circulating around the internet. And I think one of the best ways to tell this story is the way it was written in first person. It goes like this. The first day of school, our professor introduced himself and challenged us to get to know someone we didn't already know. I stood up to look around when a gentle hand touched my shoulder. I turned to find a wrinkled little old lady beaming up at me with a smile that lit up her entire being. She said, "Hi, handsome, my name is Rose. I'm 87 years old. Can I give you a hug?" I laughed and enthusiastically responded, "Of course you may," and she gave me a giant squeeze. "Why are you in college at such a young, innocent age?" I asked. She jokingly replied, "I'm here to meet a rich husband, get married, have a couple of children, and then retire and travel." "No, seriously," I asked. I was curious what may have motivated her to be taking on this challenge at her age. "I always dream of having a college education, and now I'm getting one," she told me. After class, we walked to the Student Union building and shared a chocolate milkshake. We became instant friends. Every day for the next 3 months, we would leave class together and talk nonstop. I was always mesmerized listening to this time machine as she shared her wisdom and experience with me. Over the course of the year, Rose became a campus icon, and she easily made friends wherever she went. She loved to dress up, and she reveled in the attention bestowed upon her from the other students. She was living it up. At the end of the semester, we invited Rose to speak at her football banquet. I'll never forget what she taught us. She was introduced and stepped up to the podium. As she began to deliver her prepared speech, she dropped her 3x5 cards on the floor. Frustrated and a little embarrassed, she leaned into the microphone and simply said, "I'm sorry, I'm so jittery. I gave up beer for Lent, and this whiskey is killing me." I'll never get my speech back in order, so let me tell you just what I know. As we laughed, she cleared her throat and began. "We do not stop playing because we are old. We grow old because we stop playing. There are only 4 secrets to staying young, being happy, and achieving success. You have to laugh and find humor every day. You've got to have a dream. When you lose your dreams, you die. We have so many people walking around who are dead and don't even know it. There is a huge difference between growing older and growing up. If you are 19 years old and lie in bed for 1 full year and don't do one productive thing, you will turn 20 years old. If I'm 87 years old and stay in bed for a year and never do anything, I will turn 88. Anybody can grow older. That doesn't take any talent or ability. The idea is to grow up by always finding the opportunity and change. Have no regrets. The elderly usually do not have regrets for what we did, but rather for things we did not do. The only people who fear death are those with regrets." She concluded her speech by courageously singing "The Rose." She challenged each of us to study the lyrics and live them out in our daily lives. At the year's end, Rose finished the college degree she had begun all those years ago. 1 week after graduation, Rose died peacefully in her sleep. Over 2,000 college students attended her funeral in tribute to the wonderful woman who taught by example that it's never too late to be all you can possibly be. You know, when we start a journey, there's a couple things we've got to take with us. Maybe it's a walking journey. Got to have some good walking shoes. Maybe it's a bike. Maybe it's a good walking stick. You also got to have a suitcase you got to take with you. There's also some other things that you realize when you take a journey, that it's never too late to start your own Route 66. And I'm here to tell you it's not something so simple. I'm talking about a journey that's going to change you. I'm going to talk about a journey that you're going to find moments of God, that God is present. I'm going to talk about a journey of a mission and a purpose that is quite clear. This is a journey that you are going to be taking. This is a journey that God called Paul to go on. This is a journey that we're about to set on. This is a journey like Thomas's that has a sense of purpose and meaning. Now we're going to be learning more about why Thomas rides. Hope Village, this village in South Africa, is what keeps him motivated. Now for us, our own Route 66 is going to keep us focused on our relationship with God. Everything this spring and summer is going to be focused on that one thing, on our relationship with God. There we are, right back to the bookmark idea. Again, today we mark this for giving just 1 hour to God. Now, all we ask is just 1 hour for God. Are we willing to give 1 hour of worship? Despite our busy schedules, despite the fact that we have to get in the car for everything we do, whether we're going to Walmart or for our job or to take our kids to activities, despite the fact that we live in the panhandle and we have to get anywhere, we have to drive somewhere, we believe that we can give God just 0.5% of our time. Think about it. 1 hour out of 168 hours in a week equals less than 1%. We do this with what is really important. Think about this. Think about what you are willing to do to drop everything for 1 hour a week. Now, for me, it's Nebraska football. When they're playing, whether it's on the radio or whether it's on TV, I will drop anything and I will listen. I will watch Nebraska football. Now, for my wife, it's a certain TV show. Now, we don't have cable, we don't have satellite, we just subscribe to different services on the internet, and I noticed that there was one network that we're hardly ever watching, and I said, maybe we should cancel that subscription, and she says, wait till the show is over, then we can. We all have those items that occupy our time and that we're willing to drop everything. I want the spring and the summer to have a sense of purpose and meaning and mission that focuses on God. Now, can we do this? Can we really make everything about God? Make our time for God? Can we find it in our hearts to make time to be in mission with our youth as they go down to Mexico? Can we find the time to be in mission to our Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters over at Central Alabanza? Can we really find time to serve our children with our Sunday school program? And with our children's church this summer? And with Bible school, which is coming up in July? Can we find the time to pray for the ministries of this church? Can we find the time to help in worship? Whether it be in our choirs, whether it be on our welcome team. We're going to be hearing more about that. Can we find the time to welcome in our guests? Maybe it's an opportunity to be in ministry to the people that just live out, just right in the neighborhood, right in here. They're just looking for a community to be with God. Maybe it's time to be with the building committee as they get ready to talk about what our future is like to move this church into the 22nd century. See what century I got there? In the words of Thomas Hall, all we can do is our best to stay on mission and task for the vision that God has for this church. I believe we are passionate for what God has in store for us and enables us on this journey. There's a story about a woman in Galveston, Texas that was cleaning out a bird cage. And she was using a vacuum cleaner to clean out the bird cage, and she received a phone call, and so she kind of reached over with her one hand, or free hand, to get the phone, when all of a sudden the vacuum cleaner kind of slipped, and in goes the parakeet. Well, this woman, she was on a mission. She was on a purpose. She was going to find that parakeet. She had quickly turned off that vacuum. She opened it up. She started looking for that bird. She kind of going through all the hair and the dust and the lint and everything. She found the bird, and it was just kind of sitting there like this. She cleaned it off, and she talked it. She did the best she could to pet that bird. She put it right back into the cage. Now, she was hoping that maybe it would come back to what its life used to be like. And about a week later, someone said, so how is your parakeet doing? And she said, he doesn't sing anymore. He just kind of sits and stares. The scripture says, now as he was going along and approaching Damascus, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? He asked, who are you, Lord? The reply came, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. Sometimes in our journey, something happens to us so dramatic that we're willing to change that trajectory of our journey. My friends, when we find something that we are passionate about, when we come across an idea that brings meaning, when we find something that that's so urgent that it requires our attention and our needs, we find what brings purpose and meaning to our life. We find that place to start our own journey along Route 66. Today, it's just 1 hour, 0.5% of our time. Today is to commit our efforts, maybe a little bit of our pocketbook, to the ministries of this church. Today it's to urgently prepare ourselves to the ministry of youth and children. Today, we're going to do something to possibly lift up our community for the people that want to be a part of this great community for God. It's why Thomas rides in Montana for South Africa. It's why Paul, a blind man, goes to Damascus. And it's why we commit ourselves to be in ministry with God. Because God is walking with us in this journey, everything that we do. Amen. Jim, if you could turn on those lights for us, appreciate it. Thank you.